At 6:42 a.m. My phone buzzed once on the kitchen table. Sharp, insistent. Just one message. From Claire. Change of plans. You're not coming. Noah wants to be with his real dad. 12 words. No punctuation. No apology. No context. I stood barefoot on the cold tile, coffee pot dry, steam already faded. The only sound in the kitchen was the faint tick of the wall clock, the kind we bought during a weekend sale when we were still playing at being a unit. That message didn't scream. It didn't threaten. It was worse than that. It was administrative. As if my presence, my years, had been penciled in and now erased neatly, cleanly, like rescheduling a dentist appointment. Not even canceled. Just replaced. I didn't text back. Didn't ask what brought it on or why she thought I needed to hear it in this way. I just reread the message again and again as the light shifted across the cabinets and the heater kicked on like it still believed in this house. Noah wants to be with his real dad. Not Noah doesn't feel comfortable. Not can we talk. Not let's work through it. No, he wants his real dad. Not the one who paid for his braces. Not the one who sat in the freezing car during soccer practice or held his forehead through 3 fevers. Not the man who wrote checks to a private high school that Claire had insisted on. For the opportunities, she said. For his future. No, not me. The real dad. Tom. Tom, who hadn't sent a birthday card in 6 years. Tom, who showed up for court dates and Christmas. Who was always just sober enough to sign whatever Claire handed him. Tom, who Claire described early on as a phase, a mistake, and later, when it was convenient, as still his father. I sat down at the table right where I always did. Same chair. Same view out the window to the sagging shed I'd patched up last fall. My hands lay flat on the wood grain. My fingers curled slowly, not into fists, but into memory. Muscle memory. This is where I paid the bills. Where I updated the college spreadsheets. Where I took late Zoom calls so Claire could sleep. This was my seat in a home that wasn't mine. I opened my banking app. No reason, just reflex. And there it was again. The truth. The last 5 transactions were hers. Groceries. Gas. An Amazon charge labeled Noah's Books. And a Venmo to Ethan for school trip snacks. No discussion. Just expectation. The charges arrived like gravity. No gratitude. No pause. Just one more man financing a family that never used his name. I scrolled through the payments like a man flipping through a diary he didn't know he kept. Hundreds. Thousands. All from me. You don't notice the weight until you put it down. You don't feel the absence of thanks until the debt collector shows up with silence. 15 years. That's how long I'd been the step anything. Not the father. Not the husband in any name that mattered. Just the scaffolding that kept the lights on and the fridge full and the damage from the last man hidden under fresh drywall and polite smiles. I thought I had time. That love, shown long enough, turned into truth. That if I just kept showing up, kept providing, kept enduring, they'd one day look at me and see more than a checkbook with legs. But that message, 12 words, proved otherwise. It wasn't even sent at a dramatic hour. Not midnight. Not some big fight or revelation. It came just before sunrise, while the heater rattled and the neighbors still slept and the coffee hadn't even brewed. Because for Claire, this was ordinary. Not heartbreaking. Not life-altering. Just a change of plans. Maybe she had already been texting Tom for weeks. Maybe Noah had been planning this behind closed doors for months. Maybe this had nothing to do with any one event. Maybe, and this is what landed like a brick in my chest, maybe this had always been the plan. I was never meant to stay, just to hold the line long enough for someone more palatable, more biological, to step back in and claim the reward. And Claire? She was always good at surviving. She knew how to nod, how to agree, how to say thank you when it helped her, and stay silent when it didn't. Her favorite word was we, especially around tax season. We're filing jointly, right? We'll cover tuition. We'll help Ethan with the down payment. But that morning, there was no we, just Noah wants. And what Noah wanted, Claire delivered. I stared at the chipped edge of the countertop and felt something shift. Something old, bone-deep, like a floorboard finally cracking under weight it was never meant to bear. She never loved me enough to fight for my place in this family. She loved that I didn't make her do the fighting. I was the compromise that required the least explanation. I walked into the den. The walls were still covered with family photos. Claire's family. A younger Noah, missing teeth. Ethan squinting in the sun. Even Tom was in one. The boy standing between him and Claire on some beach I wasn't invited to. No photos of me. At least not solo. When I was included, I was in the background, holding the umbrella, carrying the bags, taking the photo. I used to laugh it off. Somebody's gotta be the support staff. But now it just looked prophetic. A man doesn't need to be hated to be erased. Sometimes he just has to be unnecessary. And I realized I was never part of this house. I was furniture, useful, stationary, always in the right place, always carrying weight that didn't belong to me. There's a kind of betrayal that isn't loud. It doesn't slap or scream or cheat. It just leaves you unread. I stood in that room until my phone buzzed again. Not Claire this time. A calendar reminder. Noah's FAFSA deadline, 2 days left. I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I deleted the event. No ceremony, no rage, just a small shift. I walked back to the kitchen. The heater was still running. The sky was finally starting to glow through the slits in the blinds. I opened the fridge, poured a glass of milk, and sat back down in my seat. That same seat. One last time. I didn't know yet what I would do, but I knew what I wouldn't. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't remind. I wouldn't play the role again. 15 years had reduced me to a role. And now, even that role had been recast. The real dad was back. So let him carry it. Let him pay the car note. Let him fill out the FAFSA. Let him remember the allergy meds, the tuition login, the backup inhaler in the glove box. Let him be real in the ways that cost something. Because I was done playing invisible. Let the silence earn its own paycheck now. 2 days after the message, I sat at the same kitchen table with a stack of unopened mail and a cooling cup of coffee. I didn't drink it. I just stared at the same spot on the floor where I used to drop my work boots after a 10-hour shift. That tile had seen more of my exhaustion than Claire ever had. Noah and Ethan stumbled in around noon. It was Saturday. No greetings. No eye contact. Just Noah flipping open the fridge, Ethan thumbing his phone, both pretending I was some unpaid housekeeper who had overstayed his shift. Noah muttered something about cereal. I said nothing. I didn't trust my voice yet. It had started to shake when I spoke too long. Rage doesn't explode all at once. Sometimes it leaks out in syllables. Then Ethan sat at the table across from me, not even glancing up, and tossed out the line that lit the match. "You're just a wallet." He said it like he was stating the weather. Noah didn't laugh. He nodded. They weren't mocking me. That would have required effort. No, this was worse. This was apathy disguised as truth. "Wallet?" Ethan said again, looking up at me like it was a diagnosis. "No offense. No offense." As if that made it digestible. I looked at him, then at Noah, who shrugged like it was a fair assessment. I turned to Claire, who had just walked in from the hallway with a laundry basket, waiting for something. Correction. A defense. Anything. She didn't blink. "Don't dramatize," she smirked, brushing past us toward the washer. I nodded once. Not at them, at myself. At the man inside me who had been asleep too long. The one who forgot how to say no. The one who had confused patience with self-erasure. "Understood," I said. Then I stood, walked to the den, closed the door and made 2 calls. The first was to the university. I confirmed Noah's tuition account, student ID, and the withdrawal process. The woman on the phone was polite. She told me a late payment could delay enrollment but not cancel it entirely. I thanked her and told her she wouldn't be seeing another cent from the account under my name. The second call was to the insurance broker. The family health plan, the dental, the auto policies. I canceled every dependent not sharing my last name. I didn't shout. I didn't explain. I used Claire's favorite tone, calm, cold, and factual. Then I wrote one letter, handwritten, No email. No printout. Just ink and weight. Claire, as of today, I'm stepping out of the role I was assigned without consent and kept in without respect. This isn't revenge. It's a correction. The family you've built and allowed to disrespect me will now survive on the resources that reflect its true values. You know what I've paid for. You know what I've carried. You know who hasn't. Let him carry it now. M. I folded the letter, slid it under her pillow, and went back to the kitchen. The boys were gone. Probably upstairs. Probably laughing at TikToks or texting about how dramatic I was being. Wallet tantrum. Stepdad meltdown. Whatever label helped them sleep at night. That evening, the first tremor came. Noah walked in, eyebrows drawn, voice stiff. Did you change something with the school? I kept washing the dishes. The suds felt warm against my raw knuckles. He repeated it louder. Dad, the tuition. It's messed up. I didn't turn around. I didn't deserve the title, and he didn't deserve the answer. Later, I drove to the credit union. I printed my full transaction history for the last 3 years, tuition payments, textbook orders, car insurance, therapy sessions for Ethan, even Claire's prescription refills. All under my name. I highlighted every line. A week later, when the notices started arriving, school balance overdue, insurance lapse, service freezes, the laughter stopped. The silence was new, heavy, like the house was finally realizing who kept the lights on, like it could sense that the gravity had changed. Noah knocked on my door. You're messing things up, he said, voice low. I was never part of the equation, I replied. Then he asked the question that proved he still didn't get it. Is this because I said I wanted to see Dad? See Dad. Like Tom hadn't missed every parent-teacher conference. Like he hadn't borrowed money from Noah last spring and vanished for 6 months. Like he hadn't driven drunk to Claire's birthday dinner and crashed into a light pole. But I wasn't going to list receipts anymore. That part of me was closed. Archived. I stared at him. This is because you said I was just a wallet. He blinked. For a second I thought I saw it. Guilt. Real, sharp, hot. But it passed. No apology came. Just footsteps retreating down the hallway. That night, I packed a single duffel and went to the VFW. I'd been a member for years but never used it. Just a box I checked out of habit, like life insurance or loyalty points. But there was a man there named Hank. Vietnam vet, cane in hand, bourbon breath. He saw something in my face and didn't ask questions. He just said, build something new. Somewhere they don't have a key. Stuck. I drove home slowly, parked outside for an hour. Watched the lights flicker in the kitchen. Claire was home. The boys too. All still living in a house they assumed would never stop feeding them. When I walked in, Claire was on her laptop. She looked up, confused. You've been gone for hours. I texted. I'm back now. She frowned. Is this about the insurance? I sat across from her. Is this about loyalty? We didn't speak after that. She didn't read the letter. Or if she did, she didn't mention it. The next morning, I checked the joint account, the one we used for family expenses. It was nearly empty, but not because of bills. Claire had been making slow, quiet transfers, $200 here, $150 there, into a secondary account. Not in her name, not in mine, in Noah's. Each transaction labeled gift, allowance, college prep. It wasn't illegal, just hidden, just enough to feel like theft. And that, not the message, not the smirk, not the silence. That was the final nudge I didn't know I was waiting for. Because I realized then, they'd been preparing for my absence. Not grieving it, planning for it. They left on a Friday. Noah, Ethan, Claire. Packed bags, zipped duffels, laughter echoing down the hallway like everything was fine. They were headed to the mountains. Recharge, Claire said. The boys need air. They didn't ask if I was coming. Claire leaned in, brushed my shoulder like routine. We'll be back Sunday. Try not to stress. She didn't kiss me, didn't even touch my face. Just floated past, keys in hand, voice light, like I was some neighbor she pitied but didn't know. When the door shut behind them, I stood in the hallway and listened to the silence they left behind. No shoes piled by the door. No arguing over chargers. Just space. Hollow, open, mine. That night I listed the house. It wasn't a decision. It was a correction. A rebalancing. Because the deed was in my name. Only mine. Claire had never bothered to ask. In the early years, she deferred to me. You handle the finances, you're good at that stuff. And I was efficient, quiet, unquestioned. I paid the taxes. I negotiated the refinance. I replaced the boiler without telling anyone. She liked that I didn't keep score. So she never asked whose name was on the documents, because she assumed it didn't matter. It mattered. By Saturday morning, the listing was live. Clean photos. Updated square footage. Notes about the school district and the proximity to downtown. I had the documents ready. I knew the comps. The market was high, and my resolve was higher. By evening, I had 3 offers. One above asking. I chose the second couple who toured mid-30s, no kids, eyes wide with the kind of hunger only first-time buyers carry. They asked polite questions. They complimented the crown molding I had installed by hand. We closed in 48 hours. When Claire and the boys returned Sunday night, the new owners were already unpacking. Claire parked in the driveway. She stepped out, confused at first, seeing boxes on the porch, a moving truck still half full. Then she saw the unfamiliar car in the garage. Then the porch light flipped on, motion-triggered, but no longer set to her preferences. She tried the front door. The key didn't turn. I watched from my truck across the street. Engine off. Lights dimmed. The new owner, a calm, soft-spoken woman named Rachel, opened the door halfway. Claire froze. The boys stood behind her, Noah slack-jawed, Ethan squinting. Rachel asked, gently, "Can I help you?" Claire didn't answer. Her face collapsed inward, not fear, not rage. Something colder. Something entitled. "My house," she muttered. "This is my house." Rachel shook her head. "Not anymore. We closed yesterday." I saw it then, the flicker in Claire's eyes. The calculation. The moment when she realized something had been done to her, and she couldn't undo it. She turned to Noah. "Call him." Noah stared at the locked door. "I don't have service." Claire banged on the door with her palm. Rachel stepped back. The door closed again. 5 minutes later, the police arrived. They were calm, professional. When they asked for names, Claire gave hers like it still carried weight. When they asked whose name was on the deed, she hesitated. Then they looked at Rachel's documents. The fresh ink. The updated signatures. The officers turned to Claire, voices low, measured. "You need to leave the property." Claire blinked. "This is a mistake. He can't do this. He can't just sell the house." "Is your name on the deed, ma'am?" She didn't answer. The officers didn't need more than that. They watched her walk back to the car. No cuffs. No drama. Just the quiet slap of consequence. Noah stood on the lawn, arms crossed. "Is this legal?" The officer looked down at the clipboard. "It's done." I stayed in the truck until they drove off. Only then did I start the engine. When I walked into the lawyer's office the next day for mediation, Claire was already seated at the table. She looked thinner. Not physically, just drained. Like someone who had misplaced her certainty and didn't know where to begin looking for it. Her lawyer spoke first. "Claire claims she was blindsided, that she was unaware of the sale, that you acted in bad faith." I said nothing. I placed a folder on the table. Thick, precise. Inside were deeds, payment records, tax logs, maintenance invoices, home insurance statements, every receipt tied to my name. No cosigner. No shared ownership. Just 15 years of evidence. Claire didn't touch the folder. Across from me sat her ex, Tom. He had come to support her, apparently, to show solidarity. He looked older than I remembered. Still had that same smirk, the one he wore like a badge, like he knew every room would eventually forgive him. He opened his mouth, ready to grandstand. "Now wait a second, I cut him off without looking at him. "How much have you paid for this family, Tom?" He blinked. "Ballpark it," I said. He glanced at Claire, then back at me. "That's not relevant." The mediator cleared her throat. I slid a second folder across the table. It was thin. Inside, a copy of Tom's child support ledger. Highlighted in red were every missed payment, every short check, every month marked unpaid. He leaned back. Noah was in the corner. He hadn't been invited. Claire brought him anyway. Said he deserved to see what this was doing to his future. But I think she thought he would rattle me, make me soften. He didn't speak. He just watched. When the mediator finished reading, she said it plainly. Mr. Richards, that's me. Acted within his legal rights. The property was solely his. The sale is binding. Claire finally spoke. Her voice was brittle. You just threw us out. I met her eyes. I gave you 15 years. You threw me out a long time ago. She turned away. Noah stood. He didn't look angry, just small. Smaller than I remembered. Like all the arrogance had drained out, and what was left was a boy with questions he wasn't ready to ask. He walked out without a word. That evening, I got a text. From him. I didn't know. I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then typed, "Let's talk. When you're ready to hear it." No punctuation. No urgency. Because for once I wasn't chasing anyone. I rented a small place near the river. Single story. No gate. No stairs to climb or voices to climb over. Just enough square footage for one man and the quiet he'd earned. The kind of house where nobody waits for you to fill the fridge. Where the floorboards don't groan in protest when you come home late. Because no one's pretending to miss you. The first morning there, I left the windows open. The air smelled like wet stone and cedar mulch. A few birds whined through the screen. No slamming doors. No voices calling from down the hallway. No Claire asking if I remembered to transfer the balance. No boys asking for money without eye contact. Just space. Silence, when chosen, feels different. It's not the kind you get punished with. It's the kind you own. I didn't leave a forwarding address. Claire could figure it out if she needed to. I kept the phone on, not out of sentiment, but for the utility. Bank alerts. Lawyer emails. Final notices from a life I no longer financed. 3 days in, I got another text from Noah. You really sold it? The whole house? That word, whole, told me everything. They never understood what was mine. Only what they felt entitled to. I ignored it. Not to be cruel. Just to stay consistent. You don't explain boundaries to people who only acknowledge you when you break them. Later that week, I visited my old union buddy, Carter. He had a place out by Brighton. Steel tools on the porch, the same old dog asleep in the sun. We grilled cheap steaks and drank better whiskey. He didn't ask what happened. He just looked at me and said, "Took you long enough." Took me 15 years. 15 years of noise. Of effort passed off as obligation. Of sacrifice repackaged as expectation. Of playing the father without the title, the husband without the voice. I used to believe that patience was a virtue. That if you just waited long enough, people would come around. But here's the truth. Patience without reciprocation becomes performance. And I was done performing. I stopped sending birthday gifts. I stopped checking the family calendar. I deleted the shared Google Drive where I used to store Noah's college forms and Ethan's soccer schedules. I shut down the Amazon auto deliveries Claire used to reroute through my account. I unsubscribed from the family. It was quiet work. Surgical. A dismantling of every lifeline they never thanked me for. 2 weeks later, Claire called. Not to apologize. Not to explain. To ask about the health insurance. They said Ethan's coverage expired. The new school clinic won't treat him until. I cut her off. It's not my policy anymore. She went quiet. Then came the voice I knew too well, the one that had always hovered just beneath her skin. Cold. Professional. You didn't have to make this ugly. I laughed once, dry, sharp. You made it ugly when you stood in the kitchen and let your sons call me a wallet. She said nothing. I heard Ethan in the background yelling about something. A video game or a lost charger. Life as usual. The background noise of a house built on somebody else's labor. Still unaware the labor had ended. I hope, Claire said, her voice tight, you can live with this. I looked around my small, clean, silent home. I finally can, I said. And I meant it. A week later, Noah texted again. Mom says she can't afford tuition. Tom won't return calls. What do I do? There was a time that message would have gutted me. A time I would have canceled my own bills, taken another contract, emptied my savings just to keep him enrolled. Not because he was grateful, but because I couldn't stomach the idea of watching a future die on my watch. But that wasn't my watch anymore. I replied with one sentence. Start with FAFSA, like everyone else. He didn't respond. A few days passed. Then another text, this one smaller. Quieter. Are you really done? I didn't answer right away. I sat on it. Watched the river crawl past my porch. Thought about the nights I spent in that old house listening to Claire talk about Tom. Always in hypotheticals, always in passive voice. He's just not reliable. He means well. He's trying. She made excuses for the man who left. She made none for the man who stayed. I finally answered Noah. Yes. No anger. No lecture. Just clarity. I think that's when it sank in. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't making a point. I had simply stopped being what they never recognized in the first place. It wasn't revenge. It was release. Let Tom carry the father title. Let Claire chase court orders. Let Ethan yell into the void for a gaming chair I would have bought without him asking 6 months ago. I had no more furniture to assemble. No more passwords to reset. No more loans to co-sign. I was no longer a ghost in a house I paid for. I was just a man with a key to a door nobody else could open. Some nights I still hear it. The echo. Not voices, but memories. The sound of Noah at 13, asking for help with math homework. Ethan at 9, falling asleep on my shoulder during movie night. Claire laughing once, in a way that made me believe she saw me. But those sounds fade. They're not hauntings. They're leftovers. And I don't owe leftovers anything. I live quiet now. Deliberate. I read. I walk. I fix what breaks and leave what doesn't. Justice doesn't always show up with sirens. Sometimes it looks like a man sitting alone at peace. Sometimes it's not a shout or a slammed door. Sometimes it's just a signature on a deed. A duffel packed once with no return ticket. A closed tab on the browser that used to lead to someone else's dreams. Because love without respect is just labor. And when that labor ends, so does the illusion. So now I ask you who read this, who judge from a distance. Was I wrong to walk away? Was I cruel to let the silence speak for me? Or would you have stayed? Would you have endured it? Would you have kept pouring yourself into a family that drank and never looked up? You tell me, because in the end, all I wanted was to be seen. Not as a provider, not as a name on a check, but as a man who tried. And when trying wasn't enough, I stopped. Not to punish, but to breathe.